Welcome to Hope Talks, where inspiring stories and biblical truth come together to share the hope found in Jesus Christ. Hosted by Grayson Willis. Join us as we share uplifting stories of triumph, practical teaching, and conversation that point to the enduring hope and life-changing love of Jesus Christ. If you're in the listening area, be sure to tune in to Hope Talks every Sunday at noon on 1470 AM and 102.1 FM WBTX.
Welcome to today's broadcast of Hope Talks. I'm Grayson Willis, and today I'm joined by Pastor Kevin Griffin, the lead pastor of the Church of the Nazarene in Harrisonburg. Pastor Kevin, how are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So, a few months back, we had a men's retreat here from our church, Church of the Nazarene, and we went to Cape May, New Jersey. One of the 3 sessions that we had while we were there, I said, how do you want me to use this? Is there any way you want me to use these recordings? And you said, well, I think session 2 would be good for Hope Talks. And so that's what brings us here today. And so just if you want to start out talking about the theme of that men's retreat and where that came from.
Yeah, so our theme was encouragement, and we actually launched it. We had a men's prayer breakfast, several weeks before, in which Dr. Brian Schwartz sort of led us in the theme of what is encouragement, what is discouragement, and how it impacts us as men, and then why does it seem that we as men are hesitant to be instruments of encouragement? And so we just started that conversation, and then we took that to several days in a men's retreat in Cape May, New Jersey. Had a friend of mine who is passionate not just about encouragement, but about men's ministry and that whole idea. His name is Pastor Frank Schwartz. He pastors a church in Pennsylvania. He came, and he's got a great background of working in ministry and working with men, and he shared with us along these lines of what does it look for us like today in 2026 across age, across race, across language. What's it look like for us to be encouragers? And biblically, who are the people around Jesus that did it, and how did he inspire others to do it?
Yeah, and it was really good. All 3 sessions were really good, but this session was probably the highlight. Of the 3 sessions.
I would say so. And so specifically, I would say that Pastor Frank used the metaphor of the race. In 2 Timothy, he spoke specifically to the fact that there is a triple metaphor, that Paul was talking to Timothy, and he used these 3 themes: the theme for a soldier, the theme for an athlete, and the theme for a farmer, to try to make what he was saying so easy for the people he was talking to, not just Timothy, to understand. And he went after this idea of the race. And so what's the race? Well, the race is the Christian life of faith. And in that, how can we be recipients of encouragement and also fan the flame for others to be encouragers? And really, he just talked about, it wasn't just that relationship, but that was his launch point to get us focused in the right direction. Hey, how are you guys doing in the race yourself? And how are you doing taking the baton and also handing it to the next generation to be a presence in the next generation? Because ultimately, Paul was doing that with Timothy. He was saying, hey, here's what matters most. Timothy, I need you to take this baton, and after I'm gone, carry this baton. And be ready not just to carry it for yourself, but to hand it off.
Right, yeah. So it's been handed off to us. It's our job to hand it off to the next generation.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
And so actually this session is so good that it'll end up being 2 Hope Talks sessions. It's a really great message. And anything else, Pastor Kevin, from discipleship? I think this message was a huge discipleship message as well. So if you want to share about that.
Yeah, and I'll probably talk more about that in the next one. But basically, he made this statement. Jesus didn't say go make converts.
Right.
In the Great Commission, he said it comes with a great command and a great companion.
Wow.
What a great line.
Wow.
That's not just a line. That's a reminder.
Right.
He gives us this command, but the command comes with a great command and a great companion. So we do play a part. He allows us to play a part. It's not a suggestion. It's a command.
Right.
But the reminder is you don't have to do this on your own. And there isn't any passing of a baton if there's not other people involved. Yeah. That's why it was this beautiful picture of the race. So he basically was saying, are you aware? He used a statistic, and it wasn't just it's a statistic that he got from the navigators and probably Barna. But essentially, he said there's 44,000 people every day who enter into a Christless eternity. Wow. That is a staggering thing. And he's saying to us, much like Paul said to Timothy, hey, you guys, what are you doing about this? Are you receiving this? Are you passing the baton? And just a reminder, you don't have to do this on your own. I will be with you, and I will empower you to run this race.
Right. Yeah, because we wouldn't be able to do it without his help. None of us would be able to do it without his help.
And that seems almost so obvious, almost too obvious. And we know, he said he'll never leave us or forsake us. But it comes on the heels of the command.
Right.
That, hey, I'm with you even to the ends of the earth, which is where I need you to take this.
Yeah. Well, and I picture that Sunday where you did a great job recapping our men's retreat. You dropped the baton and you said that is the worst sound. And I think Pastor Frank Schwartz did the same thing that way. He dropped the baton and talked about how bad that sound is to athletes. Well, that's what it'll look like if we didn't have his presence. That great companion, you said.
Yeah, it stuck out to me. And, of course, we were in a building. We were in a tabernacle that had a concrete floor. So when you have a metal baton, he said it is the one sound no one wants to hear at a relay race. And even though the track is not concrete, you can still hear it. When in that exchange lane, in the great exchange, in the passing of the baton, there's one sound nobody wants to hear. And it's the sound of the baton being dropped. I mean, it's almost assuredly you're not winning this race. And so he did it multiple times, and it was a great visual and audio reminder for us. Okay, how about you guys? What are you doing in this passing and receiving of this baton?
Yeah, and it's a perfect metaphor that in the Bible where it talks about we run this race, and it talks about the great cloud of witnesses that have gone before us. And yeah, it was a great message. Any other final thoughts before we start this program, this session today? I guess we should say the dates of the retreat, just to kind of give a context of when this happened.
Yeah, so I think it was May 28th through the 30th. I always think as he was talking about this and he was standing there with a baton, and I did it on Sunday morning, I think in a relay race, if you watch track, whether you watch it or not, but all it takes is one race, the person who passes the baton, while they all, maybe for 10 seconds, 5 seconds, they're trying to catch their breath, what do they do the rest of that race? They stay in their lane and they cheer their teammate on like crazy. And I think, man, what a picture of what encouragement looks like as we think of the metaphor of the race. I'm going to pass the baton to somebody, and then I'm going to clap and cheer and just give them everything I got, even though technically my portion of the race is done.
Right. Well, thank you for joining me, Pastor Kevin, and we pray that Pastor Frank Schwartz's message, or the first part of Pastor Frank Schwartz's message today, will be a half hour of hope for your life. May God bless.
The farm that I grew up on that I mentioned last night, the property was stream bordered. And back in the day, my dad was able to do some things that you couldn't get away with today at all. Stream bordered, and on the other side of the stream was a swamp. So we had a stream that went around the border of our property, and just on the other side was all swamp. Like I said, I grew up as a kid, man. I was playing in the swamp all the time, climbing trees, doing this and that. What my dad did back then, that you couldn't do today, is he had cranes come in and he dug the stream out to a huge pond. And then he took all of that dirt. Now, when I was a little kid, I had a mountain range right in my backyard, and I went and played. We were playing all kinds of things. I was pretending, we're a $6 million man, and whatever. I had a cousin that grew up with me. He was a great big tall guy, right? We were like Mutt and Jeff together. So I would be $6 million man, and he had to be Sasquatch, right? You know, we do our battles out there, but you know, then my dad took that great big mountain range of dirt and filled in the swamp area to create more land. And then my dad took a 250-year-old huge Victorian home and moved it 16 miles and then put it on the property, right? So, you know, so it created this incredible place out of nothing. But, so we had this pond, so I grew up fishing all the time. And there was an old mill that had been there years ago, so we had the old stones from the mill, and we used that to create our own little dam so we could stop the pond, because it was still a running stream, but by having all those millstones in there, kept the fish where we wanted them. And so I grew up fishing right there, and of course, as a little kid, you know, we had even did the old bamboo. You know, my dad wanted me to grow up like he did, so he gave me a bamboo rod. You know, we would go after sunnies, had the little sunnies, you know, on their bank, kind of learn that deal. And then, you know, as we grew up, I kind of got past the sunfish, and you know, there was big mouth bass and small mouth bass and crappie, you know, and that was cool. But we also had, which was kind of, didn't always help things, but we had a lot of pike. Right? Ain't much for eating. But boy, they're sure fun to catch, man, because they will fight. And we had some pike that got really big. So one night I was about 13. Now I'm a fisherman. I'm going to go out here, and it's just before dark. Nice, warm summer evening, just before dark. And if you know anything, there's one thing about that. That's when all of a sudden the bugs and stuff start hitting the water, right? It's great timing. Sun's going down, the bugs hitting. I'm like, man, this is going to be awesome. So I got there, we had this dock. So I walked out on the dock. Now I grabbed my favorite trusted rod and reel. I had one of the old Zebco 404s. If you remember that, got it. Sears Roebuck. Some of you ain't heard the Roebuck part. If you're older, you know the Roebuck. But Sears came from Sears, right? So I had this rod and reel. And it was armed with my favorite lure. Red and white, Daredevil spoon with a treble hook. Man, I was set. I was ready to go. So I got out there to the dock, just the right moment. I mean, it was just perfect. Still, bugs on the water, sun going down, man, I'm starting to cast. Out there having a good time. Start getting a few bites. Oh man, this is awesome. Then I start getting, kind of full of myself a little bit, So I start doing like fancy casts, Then it's not just doing this, I'm just doing, go a little overhand, and then I'm start doing some back casts, that kind of stuff. Well, I went to do this back cast. Now it's just about dark. And I go to do this back cast, and something happened that unbeknownst to me, the line went out about 20 feet and hit a snag in the reel. And just as I felt that snag, what was happening, 20 feet out, the line had stopped, and so the red and white Daredevil spoon with the treble hook is making its way back to me. And I didn't know, because it was almost dark. Maybe I'd have ducked. Don't know if I'd have been that fast or not. But I cast, felt the snag, and the next thing you know, I felt the impact. And I remember standing there going, what the, I was like, So then I go running up. So here I am, I'm running up to the house. Got my fishing rod. And I got this hook in my nose. Dad. I'm running up there, and he's like, what on earth have you done now? And so I got there and I was like, man, I caught myself. Right? And so I have to go in, and then the problem is, though, this treble hook, this isn't an easy fix. Stacey, you need to sit down. And of course, my mom, she's getting a little. He's like, okay, go get me a pair of pliers, and get this other thing. He goes, you need to keep still. So he's holding my head, right? And he said, I'm gonna have to push it all the way through your nose because of the barb. He said, I can't pull it out. So he said, I'm going to have to push it through. Once it gets out, then I can snip off the bar and it'll come out. Ouch. So, I will tell you, I did not enjoy that at all. So he pushes it through, he's just holding my head, pushes it through, it pops out. They snip it off. Of course, then they go get some, I don't know what they put on it, could have been anything. I don't know, right? Could have been mercury, it might have been just kerosene. I don't know. They that stuff too, right? Anyway, I thought, okay, Christ is burden. Made it through that. Don't backcast at night ever again unless you know what's going on. However, what had occurred that we didn't until I woke up the next morning. I went to open my eyes, and I started screaming. And it felt like my eye was on fire. See, what had happened is as the hook was making its way back toward my nose, it sliced all the way across my eyeball. We didn't know that at the time. So that ended up with me going to the doctor. And the doctor going, yeah, it sliced. He said, you are so lucky. He said, it literally just sliced the very. He said, I'm talking about so close. He just sliced the outside. Right, that outside there. And he said, we're going to have to put gel. So I had this cream I had to put on like 3 times a day. And I had to wear an eye patch. Now, when you're 13, Pirates of the Caribbean hadn't come out yet. So wearing an eye patch to school ain't cool, right? Especially when it's a white eye patch and your mom puts pink tape on it from whatever she did in her hair. So I'm going to school with this white eye patch and pink tape, and I'm like, man, everybody's wanting to make fun, you know how that goes. So anyway, that snag, it impeded my progress, but there was more damage done than I just couldn't see at the time. Now, that may not have anything to do with what I'm getting ready to preach about, but I just thought I'd share that with you. But then again, it could. We'll see where we shake out. I want to start with this passage this morning. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1. We're still keeping our metaphor of this race going. Right? So Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1 says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a large crowd of witnesses to the life of faith. Remember, the race is the life of faith. Let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up. And let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. So again, looking at this verse, the life of faith, that's the race. That's the race we're in. That's the race that I spoke about last night that I want to challenge you to be in the race, to get in the race, get started. Maybe you need to start again. But we're in this race. And I love the metaphor, strip off every weight that slows us down. Anybody here, if you've been involved in any kind of track event, like I told you as a pole vaulter last night, I can remember, when things were getting serious, you come out of your sweats. Right? You got your old sweat outfit on, because I remember I used to do that to try to intimidate somebody. Right? Like I was going to pole vault, and I knew this guy wasn't really that great, then I wouldn't come out of my sweats. I'd vault. I'd take one jump, and I knew by doing that in my sweats, he'd be like, oh, dang. And I got in his head. Just little things like that. But when it got down serious, all of a sudden, you got to quit being cocky, and it's like, oh, okay, got to come out of the sweats, man. Got to get serious about this. Got to take off anything that's going to hinder me, slow me down, or possibly keep me from achieving what I need to achieve. We need to have victory over sin that easily entangles us. And we need to run with endurance. So, to me, it begs this question. What kind of race is this? Right? What kind of race are we talking about? We know the race is a life of faith, but then using this metaphor, what kind of race? Because this can be very critically important as to how we run the race. Well, I think there's some things that people usually get. I think right away, most people, if you've ever heard anybody talk about this verse, if you've ever read this verse or studied this verse, I'd say most people would be in agreement right away. It's certainly not a sprint. It's not a sprint. I was a sprinter. Right? I had 3 events. I was in the 4x100, I was in the 100 meter, and I was a pole vault. I didn't want to run distance. I didn't like that stuff. That's for crazy people, like Griffin. In fact, our coach, I can remember at least once or twice a week, he would make the vaulters run the cross-country course. And I was like, man, I ain't doing that. But I had to do it because he said, right? So what I would do is I always would get a little bottle of water. And, the cross-country course goes into the woods. So I'd run into the woods. And then I'd go off and I'd lay down somewhere, sit down, and I was like, man, how long does this take? I should probably lay in here about 10, 15 minutes. And then I'd make sure I took some water. And I would come out, coach, all right, man, it's good, That's the kind of stuff I did, because I don't like that distance running. But most people will say this. They'll look back at this passage, and especially because what the word's in here, right? We let us run with endurance the race. And so I think most people automatically will assume, I think most theologians, if you ever hear them talk about this, they're going to go, well, the life of faith, it's not a sprint. It's a marathon. But I disagree. Because I think there's another hint in there. There's another clue that sometimes we trip over. Or we miss altogether. Now, this is called Bible Study 101. When anytime a passage starts with the word, therefore, y'all know this. I know you've heard somebody say it. You need to find out what it's there for. Because if it starts with therefore, it's referring to previous information that is valuable to understand what it's talking about right now. And I think this hint. Because if we go back to the 11th chapter, the preceding verses, right before Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1, it says, all these people earned a good reputation because of their faith. Now, hold on, who are all these people? Well, if you know anything about the book of Hebrews, if you don't, I'm going to tell you. Chapter 11 is often referred to as the Hall of Faith. It's a list of all these incredible people that exercised faith and the exploits they did for God as a result of the faith. So all of these people, oh, wait a minute, this could be the great cloud of witnesses that we're surrounded by. But it goes on. They earned a good reputation because of their faith, yet none of them received all that God had promised. For God had something better in mind for us so that they would not reach perfection without us. Okay, so wait a minute. There's a connection here. Somehow this is a race that is involving more than one individual, and they can't complete it because that word that we use there for perfection also has the meaning of completion. Another place, if we talk about being mature, right? When we talk about perfection, we're talking about not flawlessness, but we're talking about maturity or completeness. So in other words, they can't reach completion without us. Now, the races I've been involved in where it requires multiple team members to be involved, and one person can't win the race or complete the race until all parties complete their leg of the race. Well, I want to suggest to you that the life of faith is a relay race. Now, let me see if I can, there we go. This picture right here. This is an important picture. See, all of these people couldn't complete this thing without us. We're all going to be part of the same race, and we all have to run our leg of the race in order for the race to be completed and won. What you're looking at right here is an important part of the track. Where this arrow starts at the bottom, you can't see it so much, but a little bit further, past the first numbers and up where you see the different lane numbers, there's another triangle that's blue. And in between these two triangles is a place known as the exchange zone. The exchange zone is a critical point in a relay race. I will tell you the exchange zone is where the race is won or lost. It's where it's won or lost. In fact, in the exchange zone, is where the baton is passed. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen one of these heartbreaking moments on TV. USA team had one a few years ago. They were known. It was known across internationally that they had the fastest runners on the track. No doubt. They should have won the relay race hands down. See, on a relay, 4x1, 4x2, 4x4, right? It's 4 team members. There's 3 exchanges. There's 3 exchange zones. The baton has to be passed 3 times. And I will tell you, anybody who's ever been on the track or been involved in that kind of competition, the worst sound you could ever hear. Wow. That is a devastating, heartbreaking sound. Because you know at that point, you are out of the race. It's over. It's incredibly important. That is where you can have the fastest runners on the track. You can have your guy get out of the blocks faster than anybody and have a lead. You can have the fastest guy on the track waiting at the end to receive. But if you don't get that baton passed in the exchange zone, it's all over. It's all over. Paul, 2 Timothy chapter 2, verses 2. I want you to hear this now with this metaphor. Paul's in the exchange zone. He's coaching Timothy. And he's going to outline something here. 4 members, 3 passes of the baton. You've heard me teach things that have been confirmed by many reliable witnesses. That's Paul to Timothy. Paul saying, you've heard me, Timothy. You've listened to me teach. First baton pass to Timothy. Now, teach these truths to other trustworthy people. Next baton pass. Third member, who will be able to pass them on to others. Third and final transition, passing the baton to the 4th and final member of the team. I want you to hear. Paul is describing making disciples to the 4th generation. 4 generations of passing the baton of faith to the next member on the team. This is how we complete the race, because it ain't a sprint, and yes, it is not a marathon. It may be a long lifetime race. Each one of our legs of the race is our lifetime. But during our lifetime, are we entering the exchange zone, and are we passing the baton of faith on to the next generation? Next generation. See, that's why I bring Pete. Because he'll amen me even if you will. The exchange zone. It is the critical point in the race. The baton has to be successfully passed. So here's the question I have for every single person here. And I don't care where you're at. I don't care if you're brand new in this life of faith, in this race. I don't care if you've been running this race for 30 years, 40 years. Are you passing the baton? Are you passing the baton? I want you to think about this.
Well, today you've listened to Pastor Frank Schwartz, pastor at Nazarene Church in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, share today on running the race. We thank you for tuning in today, and we would also like to invite you to join us next Sunday at noon on 1470 AM and 102.1 FM WBTX, and also now on 1150 AM WNLR for part 2 of Pastor Frank Schwartz's message. We pray that today's broadcast of Hope Talks has been a half hour of hope for your life. May God bless.
Hope Talks is sponsored by Church of the Nazarene in Harrisonburg in partnership with Sunshine Ministries. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review on Spotify or Apple Podcast. Your feedback helps us spread hope to even more listeners. Stay tuned for more uplifting stories in the next episode. Until then, keep the faith, share the love, and find joy in the hope that Jesus Christ brings.